Hello,
Hello.
I'm Georgia Court at bookstore number 1 in Sarasota, Florida. And I'm so glad to see poetry lovers here. We're really honored to have a terrific guest with us today. And just wanted to let you know that if you're interested in poetry events, please go to our website, sarasotabooks.com, because we have a lot going on. And the major event this spring is actually going to be in April. And that is our Poetry Life, which we're taking national via Zoom this year. And the poets are Carolyn Forche and Padrego Tuama. And it will be a poetry reading, but it will also be an important discussion led by Charlene Hunter Galt. There has been a lot of effort in our country put into banning books in various schools and in various libraries, including in our own community and throughout the United States. And we are going to have a serious discussion about that very issue and what role perhaps the poets can play in that discussion. But for now, we're going to get started with Katerina and her reading. And by the way, you're all muted, and the reason for that is so that we don't have any extraneous noise in the background, like dogs barking and somebody's spouse calling it's time for lunch and things like that. But after the reading, I will invite all of you to unmute who would like to unmute, so you can engage with Katerina, ask questions, make comments, etc. Okay, so let me welcome our special guest. She's Katerina Canyon. She grew up in Los Angeles, and much of her writing reflects that experience. She's a 2021, 2020, and 2019 Pushcart Prize nominee. Her stories have been published in the New York Times, the Huffington Post, and Folks. Her poetry has been published in Cathexis Northwest. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes.
I took a stab at that one. The Aesthetic Apostle and other publications. From 2000 to 2003, she served as the Poet Laureate of Sunland Tahunga. And once again, I guessed at that pronunciation.
You got it right.
Aha, okay, there you go. During that time, she started a poetry festival and ran poetry readings. She has a BA in English, International Studies, and Creative Writing from St. Louis University, and a Master of Arts in Law and Diplomacy from the Fletcher School at Tufts University. Her first book, Changing the Lines, is a conversation between mother and daughter as they examine what it means to operate within the world as Black women. Her recent collection of poetry is entitled Surviving Home, and that's the one that on the chat, there you go. And it's terrific. I can tell you I have read it. I love this book. There is a link in the chat, near the top of the chat, where you can link and directly buy the book and either pick it up at the bookstore or have it shipped directly to you. Okay, Katerina currently lives in Seattle, where she's joining us from today, and she now works to improve the lives of children. She also helps others by promoting and teaching poetry, and I'm so happy to welcome her because she's doing the work that is important in all of our lives. So welcome, Katerina. I'll just turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who's here today. I feel honored to be reading for you all. I'm going to start with, and there's my dog barking. I'm going to start with the first poem in my book, Involuntary Endurance. My story is not one revealed with chapter and verse. It is expressed in blood and bone. It is fingernails thrust into back muscles. It is razor blades pressed against flesh. It is told by how the shark swims through the ocean below a school of tuna, and it is not the shark's story, It is the school of tuna searching along the vast, dark but sunlight speckled ocean while knowing they have everywhere and nowhere in the world to flee. It is the brown bear pulling honey from the honeycomb in order to teach her cubs to survive on their own. It is not the mother bear's story. It belongs to the cubs who wander the forest without her after she sacrificed her life to a boar grizzly to protect them. It is told through hot cylinders of pain that sear experience into the skin. It is told in front of the sharp bayonet that sprays blood red existence against the multicolored palette of the universe. It may sit silent and still on these black and white pages, but it exists in every tremble of my leathered hand, and it is smeared into every tear-stained scream that flows through my quavering pen. This next one is My Pain is Sculpted into Art for You to Consume. Here is my pain. Gunshots echoing into the night, bullets whizzing past me as I flee across abandoned lots. Heroin hidden behind the pink bow in my panties. Consume it. Here is my pain. Switch-marked weapons, the smell of PCP, a black man dead in a Texas creek. Consume it. This is my pain. My mother beaten black by my father beaten blue by police, over my voice. Consume it. This is my pain. My furniture pushed past the sidewalk while LA marshals watched and my friends stared. Consume it. This is my pain. Getting stopped by police for mumbling reasons, getting searched without cause, being followed in fear. Consume it. This is my pain. Watching my black mother die while watching white women live with the same thing. Seeing my tiny baby thrive among fat white babies. Consume it. This is my pain. Watching black babies die. Consume it. This is my pain. Watching black boys die. Consume it. This is my pain. Watching black men die. Consume it. Discuss it. Write it. Allow it to give you verbal diarrhea on CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News. Give it a Black Lives Matter hashtag and then do absolutely nothing. This next one is a poem about my mother, who was an amazing cook and just very talented with her hands. You know, she was a seamstress, she did needlepoint, and this is a poem about how much I stood in awe of her. Her stained hands wear beet juice like blood as her dark fingers glide the thin silver steel blade around one cardinal globe after another. It is difficult to distinguish the difference between skin and flesh, but she does it adeptly. I ask, how can you do that so easily? She responds, I just do. Husks break free and block the butcher block crimson. I ask, doesn't it scare you to use something so big? She responds, no. No, she responds. Her large butcher knife hovers and dances over the submissive orb. As it turns, I ask, what's a period? She nicks her finger, winces, drops the beat, and grabs a towel. I tell her, you should use a peeler. She says, it's a sorry tool that blames its master. I reply, I think you got that backwards. She slams the knife on the board, and with a quick flash of turning tide, she looks me in the eye and says, girl, you know what I mean. I look down quickly and pick up a beet peel and dye my fingertips red. Normally when I do a reading, I just go straight through all the poems, but I feel like talking about this one today. So skill, I mentioned how I was in awe of my mother and her skill. And in demonstrating that, I also used a lot of alliteration that like um, put the word repeated syllables one on top of the other because I wanted to demonstrate how adept my mother was. So I would do blotch the butcher block crimson because it's just like something that just tumbles through. I don't say it easily, but hopefully on good days I say it really easily because I want to show this complex thing that my mother's able to do really well. Anyway, I felt like explaining that today. This one is called The Tiger. I'm going to put my book down for that and read this one off of my computer. The Tiger interrupted, and with all due appreciation to William Blake. Tiger, tiger burning bright in the forest of the night, what immortal hand or eye can frame thy fearful symmetry? Girl, stop reading and clean this sink. In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? Girl, stop reading or I'll knock you into next week. On what wings dare he aspire? On what the hand dare seize the fire? How many times do I have to tell you? And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? And when thy heart began to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet? Girl, stop reading, run to the store and fetch me some cigarettes. What the hammer, what the chain, in what furnace was thy brain? What the anvil, what dread grasp, dare its deadly terrors clasp? Girl, stop reading, now just hold it at the base like that. When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Girl, stop reading and come clean these collard greens. Did he who made the lamb make thee? Tiger, tiger burning bright. Girl, stop reading and take this trash outside. In the forest of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry? Girl, stop reading. This next one is called The Last Lecture. And another one I'm going to stop to explain. I started this one because with Russian because I studied Russian and I'm a specialist in, that's my geographic specialty is Russia and post-Soviet countries. So I wanted to combine my current learning with things I learned as a child. So that's why it starts in Russian. The last lecture. Za Starovov, mumbles the pill beneath my tongue as I press it against my teeth. Life is a plum, moans Mama's ghost, stolen from between the lips of an absent schoolgirl. Life is a vulture, sighs Papa's succubus, brilliant, rampant, extravagant, sharp. It will catch you while you sleep. Whenever you are lost, I will find you, my daughter. Remember your lessons. Diagram, box of bones, dark circles, sallow skin. The first taste is free. My tribe is cloying within my stomach. Make sure to set them loose before you go. This next one's called Blessing. Thank you. It's a far cry from shoeless. Buster Brown, patent leather shoes with bows while toes are squeezed in tightly to fit. It's a far cry from starving. Banana and Sunny D in the morning, free lunch at school, beans and rice for dinner, sometimes nothing. It's a far cry from homeless, an abandoned house in the middle of nowhere with doors propped up with 2x4s. It's a far cry from rape, the acts he makes you perform, so close your eyes and think of pretty things. It's a far cry from over, this life you live, so take time to hope for snow in the morning, fireflies at night, and Thrifty's ice cream in the afternoon. I used to love Thrifty's ice cream. You get a scoop for 15 cents. That's how old I am. Child bride. I wish for an innocent childhood with wide eyes. I wish for dolls with curls. I wish for a frilly satin dress with a few puffy bows. I wish for the soft embrace of my mother. I wish for cartoons on Saturday mornings and laughter during hopscotch. In the afternoon, I wish for ice cream melting over my tongue. I hope for a lovely prince who can rescue me like a lost kitten. I wish for a feathery life. I wish for a great deal. I do. This one is, I stop praying when I learn you abandoned me. I shake my edges for the pretense of my prayers to you, for the cloud of hope alters in a blustery air, or it disappears in the mist of the billowing skirt of sunset. I pray at the time that breath prays for a tune in contempt of meter after hearing the cry of 100 runaway angels. Up to the age I see feathers dwindle from your melting pedestal. Centuries back, I sounded like a new cherub blown from my base, one solitary step to block the cold. A lone comic sound fumed while I pressed my knees in plaster made from thistle and clover. Along with your bare face, which crushed against my sincerity, I pray to your stopped ear as a mute pay to the deaf, to the vanishing fog as it evaporates around me. Tell me, what prayers have you heard? What bright pot of gold can be credited to your virtues? Against the morning moon, lay the rebuttal to my prayer and lean over to face my eyes. Turn inside out of the prophet. See the consequence of silence. Blind yourself with the lack of right defense as an abuser who blames his wife. This one is called After Landing in Lisbon. Becoming our own barren children, tourist clans magnify the custom lines. Becoming our own confused apprentices, we exit. We are the daylight gleaming against white tiles. Becoming the future, children climb cobblestone hills, 2 steps at a time, while breathing leadered air. Becoming a castle against blue sky, marble stones etch the horizon. Becoming a puzzle. The past hides our present thoughts, but we will find our future. In respect of statues, we bow to them. In respect of the fountains, they kiss our cheeks. In respect of the buildings falling apart, the earth shook long ago by the bonfire in its center. The god swaddling his favorite angel screamed, in respect of the stairways, a harsh climb is incapable of reaching heaven's hymn. In fado music, all hope is done. The fish are swimming along the smile of the shore. This one is called I Am the Complete Secret, Scandinavia, 820 to 1863 AD. The glacier is a beast who resides in a question mark. My DNA deceives my skin. My Norway is buried under southern shadows. There are no stories of Olaf Halcyon. The northern lights blind the history written by the slave trader who carried the bills of lading. In Oslo, I saw the Oseberg that failed to cross the sea to meet me. In 1001, when they discovered home, did they imagine me in chains? The orca tear through the sea while I tread water. I had parents but lived as an orphan. Let the results reveal my blood and the stain I hide. This one is called Censorship. My poems die at the root, at stem and bloom. I could carry them to mass on tops of wreaths and sing funeral lullabies. My memories circle as melodies around the same place, a face that does not escape because it hides in my eyes. I bite it between my lips and I breathe it within my lungs. I am its mirror, its reincarnation. The lines, the rhymes make another circle. Back to the cloak, back to the demon that encapsulates nightmares. It is my face, long dead. It resurrects itself in my belly. Again and again, it turns around. I wish I could call it ugly, but beauty resides with those who hold it within their hands. My fingers were chopped off at birth, so I cannot touch the petal or the thorn. My eyes were plucked free by roosters with long red combs and plumes, but they still call me beautiful as they mount the hills of my blind-sided haunch. This affectation is for the lost words, the runaway letters, the gagged voice. This next one is called Epilogue. I feel my color burn in the belly of my TV. I digest the waving Confederate flags of unburdened arms. I am all set to combust and to shout and to chant, rallying cry. Declaration weaved from ancestral blood, and the turn of a swastika I tasted yesterday on my tongue. They lynch the venerated rope around my neck. The president burns a cross on my lawn with his derision. Through statues, highways, ships, memorials of the Confederacy, they deface the memory of a country who repeatedly attempts to expel me. I'm going to read a few more. This one is called I Say You Can't Go Home Again. During the time immediately after homelessness and shortly preceding hopelessness, we squatted in a dispossessed house in Paris, California. This is where she created gardens from clippings of other roses she stole from neighbors' front yards. Sometimes she'd ask, but most times she would sneak up to a bush, pull clippers out of her bag, snip off a branch and hurry away, a rose petal shoplifter. She grew at least 20 varieties, white, black, yellow, orange, spots, trims, mixtures, and of course, red. This is where the owner was busted for selling and manufacturing PCP, and this is why all the doors except the front were off their hinges. And this is why we were living in a 4-bedroom ranch house on 5 acres with a pool. This is why the small guest house out back smelled like a combination of gasoline, molasses, and nail polish. This is where they threw garbage because we couldn't afford a trash fee. This is where we found the dogs the police shot, parched dead, intertwined with tumbleweeds. This is where he made us dig because he knew there were gallons of PCP buried somewhere in that 5-acre yard. This is where he would sit in his lawn chair and shout instructions to us with promises of sharing the wealth if we found it, our own toxic liquid treasure hunt. This is where he handcuffed him well into the night. He would come out periodically and beat him with a bullwhip because he was caught shoplifting. It was not the crime itself that bothered him because they would shoplift together. It was getting caught that was the punishable offense. This is where he would heat the water for baths, dishes, and laundry. It took hours to get things done. We had to scrub laundry on a washboard and hang it to dry. The year was 1983. This is the walk-through closet that connected me to them and all their conversations in the radio. I often heard Paul Harvey say, "Good day." This is the way he used to sneak into my bedroom. This is the bed I used to sit on as I tried to figure a way out. This is the window I stared out when I felt trapped. This is where the roses used to be, tracing a path along the driveway to the back where she kept all her favorites. I'm going to do one more. Trying to decide what that one more will be. This is the last one. Witness. Jehovah declared me his child, his witness, until I rejected him. Now I am just a broken woman with memories that will not fade. I offer prayers with no faith that anyone hears them, and I rail at a God who does not exist. This is my testimony. If I believed in any of it, heaven, hell, paradise, good, evil, I would be on my knees. As it is, I stand on my feet, and I believe that gravity holds me such that where I will always be is on the ground or in it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. That was absolutely terrific. So I'm going to invite all of you, let's see, to unmute. Let me find the little thing. Okay, ask all to unmute. Okay, so feel free to unmute and join the conversation. A lot of you aren't on video, so I can't see you waving at me, although there is a put up your hand function, but come on live and let us see you. So
I see a few people I know in here.
great. Okay. So who would like to say something? Oh, Doug Knowlton.
Hear me all right?
Yep.
Hi, Doug.
Hi, Katerina. Thank you so much. You've helped us turn a corner today with your reading
I have.
into the real.
Mm.
Some of us old white guys who write poetry don't quite get it, but you really made a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. When I wrote this, I was hoping that You know, people often ask me, who is this book for? And I say that, you know, often a lot of Black women relate to it, and women who have faced abuse and neglect also connect with it. But I'm also happy to hear that you connected with it as well.
Well, as a father of daughters and having worked in a facility, I get it.
Thank you.
Well, you know, I want to say, Katerina, that, you know, I love your work and love your book, which is, I've just insisted to my staff that we want to have this reading. The poem, though, that really impacted me and that made me say, she needs to come, is My Pain Sculpted into Art for You to Consume.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that poem a little bit?
Yeah, that was the first one I read today, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that when I was writing this book, I was in a lot of pain, and a lot of my poems have to do with pain. And at the time I wrote this, I had a sense of hopelessness, and the news was just blaring all the time with all of these different stories, and I feel that as a society, Blacks face a lot of these issues, a lot of trauma, and there is very little done about it. And sometimes I feel the futility of it all, that I scream these words out into the ether, and what happens with that? You know, do people just say, oh wow, you know, that's a horrible story, and we see these stories on CNN, and then there's just kind of this wave and then nothing? You know, I think of like the George Floyd Act, and this being, we're closing up Black History Month, and last year Congress passed, you know, George Floyd Act, but it didn't make it through Senate. There was like this big to do about, oh, we made, you know, we took a big step, and this is a great step for America, a great step for equal rights, but then nothing. And that's what this poem is about. You know, I put out all of this pain, people have a reaction to it, but what's going to happen after this reading is over? What are you going to do as a result of this reading? And so and I just wanted to throw that in people's face, and that's why the language is repetitive and loud. And you know, I close it with, and then do absolute, and then I, you know, the Black Lives Matter hashtag. People put up the signs and say Black Lives Matter, and they watch CNN and they consider themselves woke. But
Mhm.
then it's like you do all of these things and then you do nothing. You go off to live your lives. And that's what this is about.
Yeah, very, 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 very effective. Very effective. Judy Barrett, I saw that you had your hand up a bit ago.
I did. You know, I've heard Katerina read this so many times, and I never get tired of it. And as I put in the chat, don't stop reading. I'm not your mama. But it's so powerful, and to hear you read it is so different from reading it myself, because all the passion really comes through. So don't stop reading.
Thank you, Judy.
Yeah.
But it is a very good question, though, that I think that Katerina posed and brought up. What is it that we do about this? Because we see all these things on the news, these things happening in Louisville, the George Floyd. It feels like every week. The only reason we're not seeing anything now, I think, is because we're all busy watching the Ukrainian situation.
Right.
But these issues consistently are happening. What can we do? Does anybody on this call have any suggestions about that?
And I was
Yeah.
going to say, Corey.
I see somebody called Mining for Gold wants to put, did you want to say something?
That
Yep,
would be Corey.
unmute yourself. You have to unmute. You're mute, you can't unmute? Let me see if I can find you and reissue. Let's see, you're mining for gold. I should be able to find you. There you are. Try it again now.
I'm good.
There you
now.
go. There you go. Okay, great.
Amazing
Yeah.
activist and advocate at Mining for Gold.
Good
So
to see you, Katerina. So,
Thank you, Corey.
you know, I want to first, just say thank you for even allowing me to be in this space, right? I just found out about it yesterday and I just shuffled some things around to get here. So anyway, we can talk at another time about, the impact. But I'm curious to know, before I try to give an answer, maybe I should do it in reverse.
mhm,
So I'm going to say, from my experiences, the question that you just asked has been answered for almost 450 years, man. Okay? I don't know what else you want people to tell you to do. I don't know what other script you want to follow. There has been studies, experiments, research on Black bodies. There is one singular experience that is unlike any other racial ethnic category who resides here in these United States. And one of those experiences is that we are the only group of people who did not ask to come here.
mhm,
And a second one of those experiences is that anti-Blackness is rampant in every racial category, ethnicity, inclusive of the Black race, right? And so when we think about this question, what can we do? I think you know what you can do. I think a part of the trouble is because of this singular experiences, unlike what Katerina has attempted to show us. So I can relate in cisgen male body. I can relate to PCP. I can relate to not having enough food. I can relate to the free and reduced lunches. I don't know what it's like to be white, but I can imagine that if I were white, I know for a fact that I could not relate to her intersectional identity as Black and woman, right? So therefore, when it's something that I can't relate to, I only get an opportunity and the advantages in these United States to see it through my worldview and my worldview only. That gives me big time advantages, because how can I dare say I empathize with you when I deny Katerina's and other people's experiences as even being real? So empathy crosses out once you deny those experiences. I think it's less about asking the question, right? About what to do. I think we need to understand that sometimes our lack of doing continues to cause harm. And do you want to continue to cause harm? And if not, what are you willing to sacrifice to tap into your individual self to do something different? See, the mass change is not going to come when when Doug or Kurt does something, right? It's not massive. But the more Kurts, the more Corys, the more Judys, the more Dougs can look at where they invest their money. Why do we think better schools are whiter schools? What if with all the resources we had, we truly kept our kids in quote unquote the 90% free and reduced lunch schools, right? Because it's not that white kids are smarter, right? Doug, Kurt, right? Look at Katerina. It's that they got more resources, right?
mhm.
And so when we sleep tells us the story. You can be really, really progressive, but if you live in the Swiss Alps, you're not integrated at all,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where we live, where we eat, where we send our children to school is the tale. All the hashtags in the world, as Katerina said, consume that truth. And you'll be able to do something different tomorrow once you understand what you must or what are you saying yes to advance a semblance of justice. And the second thing that I'll say about the question is I think that we need to stop being selfish. This ain't going to happen in one person's lifetime, Bookstore Sarasota, right?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of legacy do we want to leave is the question, right? Do I want to raise white anti-racist children, right? Because for 175 years, people who were held in forced labor camps and captivity through human trafficking and forced rape from womb to tomb, they didn't give up, but equality didn't happen, and it still hasn't happened. So one thing that I say is that you have a group of people in your midst that don't get the choice to give up. And most of those people look like me and Katerina and Michelle and Helen. Those are the faces I see, right? So stop asking the question, what can you do? Listen to what Black people have said and realize that, you know, the most marginalized, oppressed, even those young children who are abused now, Katerina and I work in the same industry now. They're giving us answers. Are we listening to what they're saying? So if you're not willing to do what the response is, I would humbly ask us to stop asking the damn question.
Yeah,
Good
you're
point.
right. You're right. It does require a bit of sacrifice. And a lot of people aren't willing to make that sacrifice when it comes down to it. I think of St. Louis, and there were schools in St. Louis downtown where they were not passing, the students were not passing those standardized tests. And with G.W. Bush's No Child Left Behind policy, the school had a certain amount of time or else they would lose their certification, and then parents had an option to send their kids to other schools. And when it came to that time and the parents had the opportunity to do that to the outskirts of St. Louis, there were white families, saying, no, not in our school, not, we don't want these children. And see, there's that sacrifice that people aren't willing to make when it comes down to it.
Very, very difficult. Feels to me like an intractable problem, really. It's so much is involved with politics and getting the politicians to do the right thing, and to have all of our children together in public schools. Katerina, as you point out, having the option to leave your community to go somewhere else and to leave others behind. Was a huge development in the 1970s and 1980s that did so much harm. How do we undo that? I know you don't want to hear more questions, but where on earth do we find politicians who are willing to follow that lead, your lead, and to make those changes? I see Helen wanted to ask a question or make a comment. Helen, can you unmute, or do you need me to? You're okay.
I think I'm unmuted. Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you so much to Katerina for an extraordinary performance this evening. I thought it was amazing. You can probably hear I'm speaking from the UK, and I just wanted to say, in response to your kind of self-interrogation, whether you should keep speaking, keep voicing your pain, my response would be absolutely yes. Please, we need you. We need people like you to help us connect across the Atlantic, to work together. So Black History Month in the US is not the same month as the UK. I only realized this last year. So we're already a bit out of sync. It's in October in the UK. But I loved your poetry. I've written down the names that where you use dialogue and the force, the power. Please, please, please keep writing, keep speaking. You know, it's incredible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen. And I cannot believe that you're listening to me from the UK. That is amazing. You have such a beautiful voice too.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Helen. Others, who else would like to say something to add to the conversation? No? Well, I want to ask Katerina then another question that I'm interested to know about. You're talking about, you're doing a lot of apparently working with children and teaching of poetry. Do the two of those go hand in hand, and how are you approaching that?
I have been working with children for a very long time. It started quite simply because I have children. I was a volunteer mom at the YMCA for a while, and then I won this competition. It's called Camp BPW Young Careerist, and these women, when I won this national competition, they said they wanted to support me, and I felt like I had everything I wanted with my life. That, a lot of people, when they had the support of all these business women, they used it to go get up higher in their career and things like that. But I didn't really have a desire for that. And I said to myself, what meant the most to me was trying to make sure that children, but at that point, girls in particular, did not have to struggle as much as I did. So I started something called Camp BPW. And with Camp BPW, these girls had an opportunity to have these business women serve as mentors for them. And they could spend time with these women and they could see what their potential could be. And I did that for about 6 years. And then I had to go off and do something else. And, from there, I worked, with a Better Care Network, which was an organization that focused on children in care across the world. And then I went from there to a place called Youth Care, where I worked with homeless children. And then I went to Committee for Children, where I worked with children SEL, which is social emotional learning. And now I'm at Casey Family Programs, where I work in knowledge management, and I support social workers and leaders in care in order to help them develop better systems so that families are supported. I don't want to go much farther into that because I don't want it to look like I'm representing something on behalf of Casey. But I do support systems, and I support having that. I really believe in supporting a world that supports children. And I think, and that's because of how I grew up. I saw all of these things happen, or I experienced all these things where I felt like if only someone cared enough to help me and my brothers, to help my family, just, take that extra step so that we didn't struggle. And it pains me to know that there are children out there who struggled the way I did. And I work really hard to make sure that every day that there is at least one less child who struggles. If something I do in my day can make that not happen, that's the way I want to spend my day.
Well, can you talk about the the connection between that kind of work and how you got in, how you translated that into poetry. How did that happen?
Well, I've been writing poetry my whole life. I write poetry every day. So um, the translation of this life into poetry started with when I was in Nepal, I guess, and I was writing poetry about the kids who were forced into working in brick kilns.
Hmm.
And from there, when I went to Better Care Network, I had a really bad lupus flare that sent me into a rash of depression, and I wasn't able to do the work. And when I was in the hospital, and the doctor said he put it into words much better than I could. He says, "It must be really painful for you right now to know that you have this ability to help children and you can't right now."
Mm.
He says that must cause you a tremendous amount of pain. And I just started, just tears just started just rolling down my face, and I was sobbing. And he says, "You're a writer, write that pain." And that's what I did. And that's how I wrote Surviving Home, actually,
Oh.
because of what I was going through at that time.
Interesting. Well, certainly ended up with a fabulous book. Sorry that you had to be ill to write it, but what a gift. What a gift to all of us. Who else would like to say something before we end this day?
Well, I'm getting messages, and thank you there's an article, I guess the article in, oh yeah, it did come out a couple days ago, the article in Sarasota Magazine. People really liked that piece. Thank you very much on that. And Corey said something that tagged a memory, and he said, look at Katrina when he talks about Black people and white people being equally as smart. I went to a magnet school, and magnet schools were developed as a means of integration, and my mom fought really hard for that. She was an elementary school teacher, and she led protests to integrate in Los Angeles, because believe it or not, Los Angeles was not fully integrated back when I was a kid. And she took me from my nice little home in Inglewood to go to school with white kids. And she said to me, she says, "I'm taking you to this school so that you can prove to these white people that you are just as smart and just as good as their white children. So when you get out of this car, you remember that." And I will always remember that. And that is what that is what takes me through my life every day. Even that's what, like you mentioned, I have a master's degree. It took me something in the neighborhood of 30 years to get that master's degree, one class at a time practically. And that was because of my mother saying that to me. She made me promise before she died that I was going to do that. So.
The power of mothers.
Yeah.
And may we all have wonderful mothers. And we've had a wonderful reading today. I really want to thank you so much, Katerina, for being with us, for taking the time, for allowing us to record this, because this will be shared on our website and kids in school will be able to see it. And I think these are such valuable readings and discussions that we're having. So, and I want to thank all of you for coming to participate, those of you in the audience. So those of you who are unmuted, let's give a big round of applause to Katerina. It was a terrific day. So thank you. Thank you very much, and hope to see more of you. I think we are going to see more of you, Katerina. I think this is not going to be your only poetry book.
I've already started the next one.
Yes. Okay. All right. Sounds great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.